Well, welcome to the Botanical Medicine Study Course with me, Stephanie Georgiev, your host and instructor for all things botanical medicine. A big thank you to all long-term subscribers. Welcome to all new subscribers, and a big shout out to all of you who are visiting the channel for the first time. At the time of the posting of this video, in the Northern Hemisphere, we are well into winter with all the familiar health challenges that this season presents. Now, there's all kinds of things you can do to be more healthy in the winter, but one of the things that is rarely discussed, but is actually one of the most powerful things you can do, is getting enough sleep. And we know in the Western nation, I would say particularly in North America, and I can speak for the United States, the studies there is that people in the United States are all sleep deprived. And when I was working at a wonderful integrative pharmacy, the sleep aid wall with all the supplements, we put that in the back of the store because everybody needed sleep aids. So they all wanted to go there. And the marketing technique was to make everybody walk through the store and hopefully they'd buy more things. But the sleep aid aisle was probably the best seller for this wonderful pharmacy. And it's basically a snapshot of the health challenge that most people have. They're not able to sleep enough. And so what we're going to do for the next few episodes, because winter is the time when we're supposed to be sleeping more, we're going to explore some natural plants that can help coax your body to sleep. So for this week's herb of the week, as we Americans will say, or herb of the week, as the English pronunciation of that word, we're going to be exploring a plant that has been companioning humanity for thousands and thousands of years, and it's called hops. Now, the botanical name for this wonderful plant is called Humulus lupulus. And it is a species of flowering plant in the hemp family. And yes, there's a family of hemp, and it's called Cannabaceae. And you heard me correctly. Now, this is a small family of flowering plants, and it's known, which is less triggering if it's known as the hemp family. Now, this family includes about 170 species grouped in 11 genera, and they include things like humulus and cannabis. Now, according to plant historians, and I don't know what the proper term is for this, so I'm going to call them paleobotanists, hops separated from its more lucrative and psychoactive mother, cannabis, about 20 million years ago. I have no idea why and how this conclusion came about, but wow. Anyways, hops, or Humulus lupulus, is a perennial herbaceous climbing plant which sends up new shoots in the early spring and dies back to a cold, hearty rhizome in the autumn. Now, hops has both male and female plant parts, so this could be like a mascot for certain people who identify that way. And it's native to West Asia, Europe, and North America. Now, the female part, or the flower, is the one that's most prized. And it's both medicinally and culinary prize. And the properties most of us are much familiar with in terms of beer. It can grow, Humulus lupulus can grow up to 10 meters or 33 feet tall, and it also can live up to 20 years. Now, for obvious reasons, there are German hop farms which have large poles that grow the plants in rows. So it's sort of like looking at telephone poles covered in these beautiful plants. Um, and if you've ever been to Germany, particularly Munich, for Oktoberfest, you can see that this plant is in wide demand. The hops has simple leaves. You can see, kind of looks like almost like a grape leaf there. And it has 3 to 5 deep lobes. And the flowers come out usually in July through August in the Northern Hemisphere. And the fancy word for if a plant has both male and female parts is called dioecious. And these female flowers um, are wind pollinated, which is really useful. Now, the male flowers, which have a staminate on them, they do not have petals, while the pistillate female flowers have petals that involve into fruit. And the female flowers are also, and I think it's a really pretty plant. And you can see both in the drawing and the background slide, looks like a cone, and that's what it's called. They're cones. The fancy word for it is stromboli, which is not a pastry, it's a cone on a flower. And these flowers are the main ingredient in one of the world's most desires of drinks, which has dated back to Mesopotamian times in northern Africa. They found some hops flowers buried in some mummy thing, and they're thinking that beer really did originate in Mesopotamia and Europe and Egypt, which I think is interesting. The other person that has really lauded hops is my personal hero, 12th century Rhineland mystic Hildegard of Bingen. And we know that hops is in beer. And it's really interesting when you look at the history of food and drink practices. I can say in medieval and Renaissance England, the peasants were fed in beer and bread, which for many people is the two main food groups. And especially in the monastery farms. So you had somebody that was just in charge of beer production, and they would use hops, and these lovely peasants would get, several liters a day, which I'm sure would appeal greatly as a benefit of your job description. Now, hops has really good medicinal actions. Obviously, the tincture or tea that is fermented, is lauded, but you can get the benefits of hops without the alcohol if you just want to either eat it, take it as capsule, or drink a tea. And it's mainly used for anxiety, inability to sleep, so and other sleep disorders. So you see these wonderful qualities listed here. Nervine, which means it acts on the nervous system, and it's a sedative. So it just calms the nerve system down. Sedative means it helps you sleep. It's also bitter. It's mainly the reason I don't like beer, because I don't like the bitter taste. But that's just me. But that bitter is really good for the digestive system. It's also really tonic to the stomach. It has diuretic properties. And if you've ever been to Oktoberfest, you know how diuretic hops tincture that's been fermented can be. And because it works on the nerve system and it's a sedative, it's also used as a pain reliever, and it does have antibacterial properties, but it's mainly used to enhance sleep and improve appetite. There's some really interesting studies where it can help with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, more commonly known as ADHD. It's also good for nervousness and irritability. And, if you know wonderful beer drinkers and people who brew, they do their home brew, these people are just really chill and fun. When I was involved with Slow Foods in Redlands, we had a whole um, beer celebration with people showing us how to brew it and how to cook with it. And I've never met a brewer that just wasn't a delightful human being. Now, the chemical constituents of hops, the big one is humulone. And for those of you who love the Latin binomial, you can see the humulus has these wonderful presence in these chemical words because they name these things after the substance that they find them in. And hops flowers contain a family of compounds known as alpha acids, also known as humulones. Could also name any type of dog at your brewery after that. Name that's a cute name for a dog, which are organic molecules. And they have, as you can see, a ring of 6 carbons. And carbons love to bond with things. Um, and the most important of these constituents in the hops is this humulone, and it does all kinds of things like it turns into isohumulone, which gives the bitter taste to beer. There are all kinds of actions that does, and beer also has a lot of flavonoids in it, um, which mainly helps this be, an antifungal. And these constituents sometimes evolve into things that we would call phytoestrogens, and they're plant estrogens, which is not a good term. Okay, it's not like human estrogen, but because of these properties, sometimes you'll find hops in certain herbal vaginal creams for menopausal and postmenopausal women as lubricants, vaginal lubricants. Now, as with everything, please, please, please check out with your physician and pharmacist and herbalist. If you are on any type of prescription medication, you need to make sure you're not either counteracting those, like making them worthless, or you're potentiating. Okay, so you need to be careful, especially if you're on prescription medications, specifically for the liver. Okay, because this wonderful plant does affect the liver. So if you're on any type of prescription medication for the liver, you need to check this out with your physician. Um, but it seems for the most part, it's quite safe. The issue with hops is whether or not it's in alcohol. So in some, lactating teas, you'll find hops flowers. So, obviously liquor is not a good idea or alcohol is not a good idea if you're pregnant or breastfeeding. So there's pros and cons with drinking beer, but you can always do the hops. Now, you can get it in powder form. You can get it in bulk dried form and make teas out of it. You can also take capsules, which is basically the powdered extract put into a capsule. You can also get tinctures either in alcohol. Usually the alcohol tinctures are in some sort of brandy. You can also get or glycerin tinctures or vinegar tinctures. And hops is sometimes in sleep pillows. So you'll get a little sachet to put in your bed or on your pillow, and that can help you sleep. So that's something you can do with that. Now there's a whole world of cooking with hops that doesn't necessarily include beer. Now, I have no experience with this, but I've included a really interesting link on how to cook with hops, and you can use it in cookie batter, as you can see there. If you cook with it, you can make a tea, and then you add the tea, you take the herb out of that, and you can add it to certain things. There's recipes for fresh hops bruschetta, which I personally doesn't sound good to me. And you can also cook the immature stems. And there's all kinds of recipes for that. So have at it. And obviously, there's no shortage of ways to cook with beer. I do have experience with that. You make beer breads and you can, there's nothing better than slow cooked pork in beer, as far as I'm concerned. And we've all seen that wonderful thing where you put a chicken on top of a beer can and bake it. And it just adds really marvelous flavors to everything. And you do get some of the wonderful health benefits of those humulones in such things. Now, you can also grow hops. These are some fun pictures. As I was saying, in Germany, this is actually a slide from Germany where they have these hops plants. I don't know how they harvest them when they're so tall, but if you are serious about brewing and you want to have a lot, you can grow your plants up to 30 feet tall if you like. A really dear friend of mine in Southern California, he was a very avid home brewer, and he had a couple like tomato domes. You buy those things for tomatoes, and he used them to grow his hop plants. And you can grow these in containers, obviously. You can grow them in pots. And as always, I have wonderful links in the program notes on how to grow hops. So, however you wish to incorporate this very pretty plant whose female flowers have brought such happiness to countless people throughout history, and also as something that can help you sleep during these winter months. And as far as I know, it's not habit forming if you take it in a tea. I hope you begin to explore the wonderful properties of Humulus lupulus, or the hops plant. This is Stephanie Georgia saying thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me. Make sure to check out the links in the program notes. A big thank you to all of you who subscribe, and a shout out of hello and welcome to new viewers. And until next time, be well.